They want you to believe they're unbothered, that when you walked away, they simply shrugged, moved on, and never looked back. Maybe they even posted something smug, a new relationship, a vacation, a cryptic quote. To the outside world, they look untouched, unfazed. But what if I told you it's all a performance? Behind the mask of indifference is chaos, not calm, but crisis. Because when you leave a narcissist, you don't just exit a relationship, you rupture the fantasy they've built around themselves. You take away their mirror, the reflection they depended on to feel real. And for someone whose identity is a patchwork of illusions, your absence isn't just rejection, it's annihilation. They won't show it, of course. They're too well practiced in emotional theater. But what's brewing underneath is rage, shame, and a terror of disappearing. They aren't mourning love. They're mourning control. Not grieving a partner, but the loss of power, the loss of their supply. And that truth, it haunts them. You became too real, too strong, too reflective, and instead of facing the truth you represented, they did what narcissists do best. They blamed, they smeared, they ran. In this video, we're going beneath the surface. We're ripping off the mask, exposing what narcissists really feel when you leave. Not what they pretend, not what they post, but what happens inside, when no one's watching. If you've ever doubted your impact, or questioned your worth, you're about to discover that walking away wasn't weakness, was the most powerful move you ever made. So stay with me, because this truth could change everything. Part 1. The Mask of Indifference. The narcissist's most deceptive lie. You walk away, you expect anger, pleading, regret, but instead you're met with something else entirely. Coldness. A chilling indifference that makes your heart question everything. They smile, laugh, post happy pictures, and remain eerily silent, as if you never existed at all. And you begin to wonder, did I ever mean anything to them? Wait. Don't let the performance fool you. That indifference is not a sign of inner peace or emotional strength. It's a mask. One they've perfected over years, designed to hide the psychological chaos unraveling beneath the surface. They're not calm. They haven't moved on. They're emotionally bleeding, but their ego is far too fragile to admit it, even to themselves. A narcissist does not possess a true self developed from within. Their identity is a collection of mirrors, reflections borrowed from others, especially from you. They don't exist as a whole person, but as a fragmented construct, entirely dependent on how others perceive them, not who they actually are. So, when you leave, you're not just walking away from a relationship. You are dismantling one of the pillars that holds up their false self. You're removing the mirror they need to keep feeling important, and that is a loss they simply cannot tolerate. A healthy person may grieve after a breakup, feel sadness, pain, even anger, but eventually they grow. A narcissist does not. They don't process pain as a lesson. To them, your departure isn't just rejection, it's an attack on their identity. But you're no longer obedient. You no longer admire them, and by making the decision to walk away, you've committed the one act a narcissist fears the most. You made them feel irrelevant, and that is what they cannot endure. They believe they are entitled to your devotion, loyalty, and submission unconditionally. So when that supply runs out, they don't know what to do with the screaming emptiness inside. Rather than turn inward, they turn outward. They smile, they flaunt, they pretend. So when you see them hand in hand with someone new just days after the breakup, don't let it shake your worth. They're not happy. They're self-medicating with a temporary distraction to cover the wound your absence created. They need a new supply, a new person, to reflect back the illusion they're desperately clinging to. And you shattered that illusion. You became the truth they never wanted to face. You are the living proof of everything they've spent their lives denying. But they are not perfect, that they are not invincible, and that no one is obligated to stay. Part 2. Narcissistic Injury. The nightmare they'll never admit to. When you leave a narcissist, What you trigger isn't just sadness, anger, or typical heartbreak. What you cause, whether you intended to or not, is a psychological earthquake known as narcissistic injury. According to Dr. Eleanor Greenberg, a clinical psychologist and expert in narcissistic personality disorder, narcissistic injury is a direct blow to the narcissist's inflated ego that often results in extreme reactions, not because they miss you, but because they've lost control over the story they tell themselves about who they are. To them, you're not just a lover or a life partner. You are the living proof of the idealized image they've spent years carefully constructing. And when you walk out of their life, you don't just disappear. You expose them. You uncover the void inside them, an emptiness so unbearable they've spent their entire lives avoiding it. They're not hurting because of love. They're hurting because their ego has been unmasked. Dr. Kristin Neff, a pioneer in self-compassion research, once said, "Where a person cannot build internal self-worth, they cling to external image, and anyone who threatens that image becomes a threat to their survival." Narcissists cannot tolerate truth. Truth makes them feel small, unworthy, and unremarkable. Feelings their psychological defenses are designed to suppress at all costs. And you, by withdrawing, staying silent, and refusing to engage, have unintentionally become a walking reminder of everything they're trying not to feel. That's why after you leave, they may act in wildly contradictory ways. Some become erratic, desperate, even volatile. Others project eerie calmness and indifference. Both are defense mechanisms. Neither is real emotional healing. They're survival tactics designed to patch the cracks in a collapsing facade. Because they will never willingly let go of their illusions, they do the next best thing. They rewrite reality. Have you ever heard them playing the victim, telling others you abandoned them, that you were the toxic one, that you never understood them? This is what Dr. Craig Malkin, author of Rethinking Narcissism, calls reality distortion to preserve ego. Narcissists will revise the past in order to keep playing the hero in the story of their lives. This isn't just deception. It's psychological self-hypnosis. They need to believe you were the villain, because facing the truth means facing their own brokenness, and they're simply not equipped to do that. So what do you do once you understand all this? As someone who's worked with countless survivors of narcissistic abuse, I can tell you this with confidence. Don't seek validation from someone who's incapable of seeing you. Don't wait for an apology from someone who doesn't take responsibility. And don't waste your energy trying to make someone understand you when they can't even understand themselves. You don't need closure from someone who shattered your self-worth. You don't need their recognition to reclaim your value. All you need is one truth. They didn't leave because you weren't enough. They left, or you left, because you finally woke up. And that awakening is exactly what they fear most. Because it doesn't just end a relationship, it dismantles the illusion they depended on to survive. Part 3. Overwriting. It's not love, it's the fear of your absence. When you finally walk away from a narcissist, you might think the story is over, that both of you will go your separate ways and life will move on. But then, a message appears, a late-night call, a vague post that seems to hint at you, and you start wondering, do they still love me? But the truth is far from that. This is hoovering. Hoovering is one of the narcissist's favorite manipulation tactics, named after the vacuum cleaner brand, because, quite literally, they're trying to suck you back into their orbit, not out of love, not out of personal growth, and certainly not out of gratitude. They hoover because they can't stand the void you've left behind. You were their emotional supply, the source of admiration, control, power. When you walked away, you didn't just leave an empty space. You took with you the mirror they used to see themselves. And now, in your absence, they're faced with something terrifying. Silence, not freedom, emptiness. And rather than confront that, they reach for the quickest fix they know: you. What makes hoovering so dangerous is that it targets your most vulnerable wounds. The need for validation, the fear of being alone, the hope that maybe, just maybe, they've finally changed. They'll say exactly what you've always longed to hear. They'll perform repentance with precision. But make no mistake, this isn't an apology, it's an unspoken contract. I'll give you what you crave if you return to being my source. Dr. Ramani Durvasula, renowned expert in narcissistic personality disorder, puts it plainly. Hoovering is never about love, it's about power. It's the narcissist checking whether they still control your emotional responses. At the moment you respond, even with a short message, a curious reply, a final meeting for closure, you're handing them access to your mind again. They will slip through any crack, your empathy, your nostalgia, your unfinished grief, and restart the cycle. Hoovering is not a redemption arc. It's a trapdoor back into the same prison. It begins with sweet promises and ends with your self-worth slowly dismantled. Because here's the truth. It's not that they can't live without you. It's that they can't live without someone to control. You need clarity, not confusion. You need peace, not a recycled illusion. And you must understand, every time you resist the Hoover, every time you choose not to answer, you're protecting the freedom you fought so hard to reclaim, and that requires something profound. Loyalty to yourself. Not to memories, not to potential, but to truth. The truth that you deserve a relationship that never makes you question your worth in the first place. Don't mistake a pull for affection. Don't confuse manipulation for awakening. And never forget, someone who truly loves you would never be the reason you had to heal in the first place. Part 4. The Hidden Rage. When the narcissist can't stand your healing, when hoovering fails, when you don't reply, don't cave, and don't come back, the narcissist enters the most dangerous phase, psychological retaliation. This is when their rage is no longer disguised by sweet words or seductive apologies. It emerges in a different form, destruction. They no longer want your love. They want you to hurt. Because if they can't control you through emotional closeness, they'll attempt to control you through chaos. And since you've escaped their grip, the only way they can still feel powerful is by tearing you down from a distance. Not physically, but emotionally, mentally, socially. They'll start quietly. They'll spread doubt about you. They'll play the victim. They'll hint to others that you were the unstable one, the selfish one, the betrayer. They'll say they gave everything and received nothing. And the worst part? They'll do it while keeping their public image intact. Because if they can't bring you down, they'll try to pull others away from you. Why? Because every step forward you take is a slap to their fragile ego. Every laugh, every moment of peace, every sign that you've moved on is proof that they no longer matter. And for a narcissist, that's intolerable. Their identity isn't built on inner strength. It's built on external influence. So when you no longer react, when you no longer need them, you reflect back something they fear more than anything else, their irrelevance. Dr. Shahida Arabi, author of Power, Surviving and Thriving After Narcissistic Abuse, wrote, "Narcissists don't fear being hated, they fear being forgotten. They fear the fact that you might live well without them. That's what they try to destroy. Your freedom, your peace, the pride you've reclaimed by walking away and never looking back. But here's what you must remember. Their retaliation says nothing about your worth. It says everything about their loss. They retaliate because they lost. They lost the game of control. They lost your growth. They lost the reality that no one can own someone who has finally learned how to own themselves. And now you have a choice not just to protect your well-being, but to rise to a deeper level of healing. emotional indifference to their rage. No reactions, no explanations, no justifications, because you no longer live in the narrative they tried to write for you. You are no longer their reaction. You are your own person, and that, more than anything, is what enrages them the most. Part 5. Reclaiming yourself. When you're no longer a reaction to them, leaving a narcissist isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of something far more powerful. The journey of becoming who you were always meant to be. After spending so long in a relationship where your role was reduced to a supporting character in their drama, the silence that follows can feel disorienting. There are no more mind games, no more emotional power plays, no more second-guessing your worth. What's left is you and the unfamiliar territory of your own freedom. But freedom, at first, often feels lonely. You must learn how to hear your own voice again, a voice that's been buried beneath years of people-pleasing and self-doubt. You must begin to distinguish between your intuition and the lingering echoes of manipulation. And perhaps most challenging of all, you must rebuild your identity. Not by erasing the past, but by integrating it. Dr. Harriet Lerner, a leading expert on emotional boundaries and recovery, once said, "Dealing isn't about going back to who you were, it's about becoming the person you never had the chance to be." And you, yes you, are standing at the threshold of that transformation. You no longer need other people's approval to validate your existence. You no longer need an apology to move forward. You no longer need the old story to feel safe. You start choosing what truly feeds your soul. Peace over drama. Truth over illusion. Boundaries over sacrifice. This process isn't quick. It isn't easy. There will be moments of doubt, of backsliding, of longing for the chaos that once made you feel connected. But those are only echoes, not invitations to return. Remember, truth isn't always comfortable, but it's always liberating. As you move deeper into this journey, you'll begin to notice something extraordinary. Your peace starts to speak for itself. It no longer feels empty. It becomes a foundation for everything new, healthier relationships, meaningful work, a life where you no longer shrink, but expand into your full, authentic self, and eventually, you'll realize you didn't just leave someone behind, you left behind an old version of yourself, the version who once needed to be chosen so badly, she forgot to choose herself. Now you are no longer a reaction to someone else. You are the author of your story. You define love, you set the boundaries, you claim your freedom. Part 6. Guarding your new identity. Never returning to the old cycle again. Healing doesn't end when you walk away from a toxic relationship. It truly begins after you've left, when you must learn to live without looking back, without slipping, without getting pulled into the same manipulative patterns, dressed in different clothing. And the most important question at this stage isn't what to do next. Once you've reclaimed your identity, once you've remembered who you are, the next challenge is learning how to protect that version of you, to not let anyone, even someone you once loved deeply, strip it away again. Because the narcissist doesn't always disappear, they may come back in a different form, or worse, you might meet someone new who plays the same emotional game. If your inner wounds haven't fully healed, you may unknowingly enter a new cycle with a different face. That's why you must upgrade from the inside out, not just with boundaries, but with a deeply rooted sense of self-worth. When you know who you are, you no longer attract people who thrive on controlling you. You're no longer easy supply. They sense your clarity and back away. Your inner strength becomes the light that drives away emotional predators. Dr. Brené Brown once said, "Boundaries are the clearest expression of self-love, and self-love isn't just positive affirmations or feel-good quotes. It's being able to say no without guilt, It's choosing peace over proximity. It's walking away from disrespect, even when it's masked in charm or subtle manipulation. Listen to your intuition. It was silenced for a long time by the noise of others, but now it's coming back online. It's your most faithful guide. It will alert you when something is off, even if everything seems right on the surface. Be patient with your process. Healing isn't linear. There will be days when you feel solid as stone, and others when you feel fragile as glass. That's okay. The point isn't to never fall. It's to fall forward, to stay on the right path, not back to who you were, but closer to who you're becoming. Choose people who make you feel safe, not because they flatter you, but because you can be yourself with them. Choose environments that allow you to grow, not places that force you to shrink to be accepted. And remember, healing isn't about becoming perfect, it's about becoming real. When you are real, you'll no longer be appealing to the fake. When you are free, you'll no longer fit into the manipulator's mold. When you are yourself, you stop getting lost in other people's maps. You weren't born to play a role in someone else's script. You were born to write your own life. And this time, you're writing it with awareness, with boundaries, and with an unconditional love for your truest self. In the end, what terrifies the narcissist the most isn't that you left, it's that you didn't come back. No explanations, no closure, no lingering hope that they'll change. When you stay silent, when you live your life without needing them, you are delivering the one message they fear more than anything. I don't need you to exist. That's not just freedom, it's a declaration. You're not a victim. You are living proof of transformation. Proof that even after being twisted, broken, and manipulated, you can rise, be whole again, and no longer be afraid of the dark. You don't need revenge. Your peace is the revenge. You don't need to explain. Your calm, steady presence alone is enough to shake the foundation of the illusion they still cling to. And you know what the most beautiful part is? You're no longer defined by what hurt you. You live, you breathe, you love yourself, and you do it without asking anyone's permission. When you walk away and never look back, you don't just break the cycle of manipulation, you end an entire era and begin the first chapter of a life that is finally, fully yours.